Okay, let's unpack this. Wow. Struggling student loan borrowers VOW to never repay their debt.
Yeah, that's quite a headline.
That headline, it's straight from a YouTube video transcript, Pink Book Lessons channel. It really grabs you.
It does, and it lands right when federal student loan collections have just, restarted after that really long pandemic pause.
It feels like perfect timing for this kind of reaction, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, the timing makes that raw emotion in the title even more striking. It really flags the high stakes, how personal this is for people.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we're going right into it. We're using excerpts from that Pink Book Lessons YouTube channel. We're trying to get past the official statements for a bit. This is about the real reactions, what people are actually saying now that collections are firing back up.
Sounds good, getting those firsthand accounts.
Yeah. Our mission, really, for you listening, is to get a clear picture. What's happening on the ground? How are borrowers responding? What could the ripple effects be? All from this direct commentary.
And I'm here to help add some context to that.
Great. Because it's crucial, isn't it, to understand the human stories behind these big policy shifts.
Absolutely. And this video, well, it seems to offer a pretty unfiltered glimpse into that reality.
Okay, so diving in. The video transcript hits a specific date pretty hard, May 5th, 2025.
Right. That's the date they mentioned.
That's when the Department of Education's Office of Federal Student Aid officially restarted collections, specifically for defaulted federal student loans.
And it mentions that no new referrals to collections had happened since March 2020.
Yeah, that detail really underscores how long this pause actually was, a huge stretch of, suspended activity.
And it's worth emphasizing again, this restart, it's really laser focused. It's on borrowers with defaulted federal student loans.
Right, not just anyone struggling now.
Exactly. These are folks who were likely already in default before or maybe during that long pause. That distinction is pretty important, I think.
It is, and the video, it points to the machinery behind it all.
The mechanics.
The Department of Education, Federal Student Aid, working with the Treasury Department's offset program. Now, involuntary collections, that sounds, forceful.
It does sound pretty intense.
What does that actually mean based on what the video says?
Well, the video spells out pretty clearly. Involuntary collections basically gives the government the power to start withholding money.
Withholding from where?
From various federal sources. So your federal tax refunds, federal pension payments, even potentially part of your wages.
Wages, too.
Yeah. And the commentator in the video, they make a point of saying, look, this isn't some brand new power they just invented. It's been law for decades. The pause just kind of put it on hold, put it in dormancy.
So it's not like a sudden expansion of government power then, more like flipping a switch back on for existing collection methods.
Precisely. Reactivating tools they already had. And the main tool is that Treasury Department offset program. The video calls it the federal government's internal collections agency, which is a good way to put it.
Okay, that gives them the legal path to do this across the country.
Right.
And it's not just for huge debts, right? The video mentions something about a minimum amount.
Yeah, that was striking. It highlights that the offset program can apparently be triggered for defaulted debts as low as just $25.
$25? Wow, that seems surprisingly low to kick off that kind of action.
It really does. It sort of underscores the government's focus on recouping these funds, maybe regardless of the individual amount owed. It suggests, a systemic approach to the whole default issue.
Okay, so that's the mechanism, the how. But what really jumps out in this video, I think, are the borrower perspectives. Just raw, unfiltered stuff.
Definitely.
Let's start with the creator. She's 25. Carrying over $100,000 in student debt. Her reaction is, it's basically a declaration.
It really is. Her saying she'll never repay, that's a very strong stance to take publicly.
Yeah. And she mentions having a law degree, but it's not formally recognized, and hints at legal challenges.
And she talks about calling her loan servicer getting quoted a payment of $1,554 a month.
Whoa.
And her reaction was immediate, right? That is rent. I don't have it. Which instantly makes the size of these payments very, very relatable for a lot of people.
Absolutely. But then the video transcript itself includes commentary sort of pushing back on that.
Right, pointing out what some might see as a contradiction.
Yeah, like her calling the debt managers greedy while she herself has this, very significant loan amount. That sparks a pretty immediate, maybe uncomfortable thought.
It does. It puts a spotlight on that complex mix, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Individual choices about borrowing, the education you get, your ability to actually pay it back later, raises questions of fairness, responsibility, on both sides, really.
Then the video shifts gears. Totally different story. A 42-year-old TikTok user.
Yeah, her perspective is just exhaustion, pure exhaustion.
She calls herself a hard worker, so she's been paying for 20 years.
20 years.
And now owes more than she originally borrowed because of income-based repayment, compounding interest, that whole mechanism. That's brutal. Her plea for help online, it taps into a different kind of struggle, like being trapped in a system you can't get out of.
Her situation really illustrates, quite painfully, the potential downside of some of these income-driven plans, especially if the interest just keeps piling up faster than you can pay it down.
So your balance just grows and grows.
Exactly. Even while you're making payments for years, it makes you question the long-term effectiveness, the design of these safety net programs. Are they working as intended?
Good question. And, you know, the video doesn't pull punches. It includes some pretty sharp critical commentary on these reactions, too.
It presents that other side.
There's the argument right there in the transcript that borrowers, well, they knew what they were signing up for. They presumably got the benefit of the education.
And a clear skepticism towards what the commentary calls online victim narratives.
Right. That perspective really hammers home the idea of contractual obligation. You took out a loan.
And it uses analogies, comparing student loans to other debts we understand, like mortgages, rent, car payments. Even child support enforcement is mentioned.
To basically say, look, society expects you to pay back money you borrow no matter what happens later.
Pretty much. That's the core of that argument.
Okay, another perspective. We also hear from someone with $150,000 in debt, 2 degrees, biology and secondary ed with clinical mental health counseling.
That's a lot of education.
Yeah, and she feels duped into getting multiple degrees. Says she sees people without degrees earning similar money.
Oof. That's got a sting.
And she admits she hasn't paid in over 4 years, says she prioritizes her kids. It paints this picture of just deep disillusionment with the whole value of her education.
Her experience, it brings up those tough questions about the actual ROI, the return on investment, for certain degrees, right?
Right.
Especially if they don't clearly lead to higher earnings in the job market.
And her choice, prioritizing family over loans, that highlights the incredibly difficult financial trade-offs people are facing.
Absolutely. Real-world dilemmas.
And then the commentary in the video takes a pretty sharp turn. It gets into discussions around feminism.
Yes, that section.
Claiming it somehow guided women towards degrees that don't pay well, while, I guess, basic life skills were missed.
And it uses examples like wigs and trips to the hookah bar as supposed evidence of, like, mismanaged money.
Okay, that's clearly a very specific, very critical viewpoint being presented there.
It is. And it's really important for you, the listener, to recognize this is subjective commentary within the video. It's trying to link big social trends to individual choices and financial problems. But, well, it lacked a broader systemic look and comes across as quite judgmental.
Yeah, judgmental of spending habits without knowing the full story.
Exactly. We need to see it as one specific critical take among others.
Definitely. And to balance that, the video also includes a perspective that basically agrees with collections restarting.
Right. The counter-argument.
The main point there seems to be, borrowers shouldn't have just assumed the loans would disappear. They shouldn't have believed they wouldn't have to repay.
Again, drawing parallels to other kinds of credit, car loans, credit cards, where if you don't pay, there are clear consequences.
This viewpoint really doubles down on the idea that student loans, yeah, they're complicated, there's debate, but they are still financial obligations. You're expected to pay them back.
And the commentary seems to suggest a frustration, maybe, with the idea that some borrowers expected widespread forgiveness without any clear law or policy actually being in place for it.
Okay, now let's talk about the pause itself, the sheer length of it.
Over 5 years.
Yeah, the video reminds us, over 5 years since it first started back in 2020 with the CARES Act. And the commentator, well, they have a pretty pointed take on that long relief period.
The sarcastic remark about borrowers having 5 whole years to blow money on restaurants, wigs, vacations, overpriced Chinese luxury items.
Yeah, that's certainly provocative.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
It reflects a certain sentiment, perhaps, that the pause, while obviously helping many, might have been seen by some critics as just an opportunity for spending, not necessarily for financial planning for when payments eventually came back online.
It frames the restart really clearly, though, not as some random punishment, but as simply the end of a temporary support measure.
Exactly. A return to what the video calls the regular business of student loan collections, something that, as we said, has been happening for decades.
So it puts it in that longer context. The
Yeah.
pause was the unusual thing, not the restart.
Precisely. The obligation to repay federal student loans existed long before COVID. The pause was an extraordinary response to extraordinary times, not really a permanent change in how things work.
Okay. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, looking back at this Pink Book Lessons video transcript, what are the absolute essential takeaways?
Well, I think the key points that really jump out are: 1, the official restart of these involuntary collections for defaulted federal loans is happening now. It's active. 2, the government has established legal ways to do this, the offset program, taking refunds, wages, etc. It's not new.
Right.
And 3, just the sheer range of reactions. Intense, personal, often completely contradictory views from borrowers. We heard defiance, feeling misled, stories of just grinding it out for years, and also those really critical takes on borrower responsibility.
It really does put a spotlight on that core tension, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
The basic expectation that debts get paid, bumping right up against the real economic struggles and individual situations people are in.
And this one source, this one video transcript, it shows just how many different viewpoints and experiences are tangled up in this. It highlights how deeply complex the whole student loan issue is. There are no easy answers here, no single solution everyone agrees on.
Definitely not. So for you listening, what aspects of these different views really struck you? What felt particularly telling or maybe even unexpected?
Yeah, what resonated?
And keeping that in mind, maybe here's a final thought to chew on. Given everything we've heard, these diverse experiences, these strong opinions, what do you think is the most critical underlying factor driving these ongoing student loan repayment challenges? And looking ahead, what kind of solutions might actually offer a meaningful way forward?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is, and it's clear this is a conversation that's definitely